Put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TOGCHAT Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, it's Monday, not Wednesday, but it's still time for our weekly photography chat. Thanks for joining me for the live YouTube edition of TOGCHAT. As you know, my mission is to help photographers like you to develop a better understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. So come on, before we get going, please, since there's not a lot of people here tonight, it's on Monday, please take a moment, let your photography friends know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. As always, Facebook, Twitter, they are the fastest way to get the word out. You can click that share button right down here, or go ahead and share the link that I just put in the chat window there, tog.chat/live. We got a lot of people showing up here now, tuning in from all over the world, so please make sure you say hi, let me know where you're from, check in. I've got Ken here from the UK, Rob in Virginia, who I got to meet at District Camera this past week, Caleb in Austin. Who do we got here? We got Lynn from New York, we got Sven from Norway, I've got Cristiano from Brazil, Eric in Ohio, Alvin from Virginia. We got people from all over the place. Dave in Japan. How cool, right? So, couple of things business-wise to take care of tonight. Oh, of course. Post some questions. I have a couple questions lined up, but not enough to fill up the whole hour. So hopefully, if you're here, there is something that I can help you with. So start typing, and I'll do my best to get it all in before we finish up tonight, okay? So let me just get that out of the way. I had somebody reach out to me who really clearly pays attention to the stuff that I talk about, which I'm sure that a lot of you do. But in my video that I did about my live streaming setup, I mentioned that I'm standing here in front of an elevated desk. Well, a couple weeks prior to that, and I gave the link for it and everything in that, a couple weeks prior to that, I had talked about a different elevated desk that I have in my studio, and that is correct. And I haven't actually included that in any other videos, so this person asked if I would share a little bit about that desk, let you know what it is. So I've got two pictures here. These are literally like quickie iPhone snaps, but I wanted to show. So in my studio, this is the desk, which is made by Anthrodesk, and I'll show you their website and all that information in just a second. But basically, I pretty much keep it elevated all the time. I don't go up and down with it a whole lot. As you can see, I've got my dry cabinet underneath. The dry cabinet is the humidity controlled cabinet where I store all my camera bodies and lenses and that type of stuff. But it sits right next to the makeup station. It's got my iMac on it so that I can tether. I can see what I'm shooting as I'm working. So it's a great setup. The company name, for those of you that were interested, and no, this is not an affiliate link. I don't make any money from these guys, nothing like that. But it's Anthrodesk. Very much love the desk. As far as adjustable height desks go, super easy to put together. Not that I go up and down with it a whole lot, but it is nice and smooth, nice and quiet, reasonably priced as these types of desks go. So yeah, if you're asking, I highly encourage. This is a brand that I am very happy with, but there it is. So Jonathan, good for you for noticing that I had talked about two different desks. The one that I have right here, honestly, it's like a super cheapie that I found on Amazon, and the link is in that video for my live streaming setup, but it's because I just stand at it. Like I guess ultimately didn't need the adjustable height desk. The Anthrodesk, definitely a much nicer setup. I'm very happy with it. So, all right. I hope that you have all been out doing some shooting, getting some practice in. Let me just give you a quick update. I've been like all over the place. So since we talked last, I have been in Indianapolis. I have been in, Indianapolis and Boston, Massachusetts at Hunt. So Robert's Camera at Indianapolis, Hunt's Photo and Video in Boston, Melrose, Massachusetts. Then I went to Las Vegas for WPPI and met a lot of you at the Savage Universal booth there, and also did a masterclass, met a few more of you at my masterclass. and did a couple portfolio reviews. Then I took a red eye to Arlington, Virginia, and I did an event at District Camera in downtown Arlington, which was awesome. We had 96 people. That was just the attendees, plus like 8 people from Olympus, myself, the store employees, all crammed into a small camera store. It was pretty wild, but it was a really fun night. And then flew out to where it was really cold in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and did an event at the Camera Mall on the campus of the University of Michigan, which is the first time I've ever seen it. Incredible campus, huge. And now I'm back for a couple days, and I head out again tomorrow to go to Florida. I'm actually going to take 2 whole days for some rest and relaxation in sunny Florida. But then the end of the week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I am the keynote speaker and doing like 5 other presentations for the Florida Camera Club Council event. So as always, all that information is available on my website, but I did want to point out to you that I have a nice little set of workshops coming up that people keep asking me about my workshops. So here you go. If you go to the website, you click on the speaking and events link, and I'll go ahead and I will post that link into the chat window right there. Scroll on down, you'll see obviously my entire speaking schedule. I've still got a few stops left on the Capturing Light tour with Olympus on March 12th. I'm going to be at Mike's Camera in Sacramento. Literally going to be on the ground in California for less than 20 hours. Flying in, doing the event, flying back out again. And then on March 28th, I'll be doing the last of the Capturing Light stops in Austin, Texas at Precision Camera. Been there a couple times, really love it down there. Great store, great group of people. Hope to see some of you there because I know some of you that are here are from Austin. And then April 11th and 12th, by popular demand, there's still a few spots left, my 2-day portrait and studio lighting intensive. This is hardcore, like nuts, bolts, soup to nuts, all of it, whatever you want to say, whatever adjective you want to throw it out. We're going to do everything from the planning of a shoot to communicating with your subjects before the shoot, before they ever show up, to how do you set your lighting, how do you set the tone, how do you set the mood, posing, you name it, everything, even some post-processing of portraits. So that's coming up on 11th and 12th, 2-day workshop at my studio here in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And these are small group workshops, right? So it's only 7 people that can attend those workshops. And then this is a new announcement since the last time we talked. April 14th and 15th, I'm going to be at Shutterfest again, doing a bunch of stuff this year. So last year I did a lunch and learn all about social media and marketing. This year I am doing a lunch and learn that is called Prep. Great photography, that's the P, requires, that's the R, excellent, that's the E, preparation. That's the second P for prep. So a lot of you routinely ask me about how I prep for shoots, from the idea standpoint to communicating with models. You ask me, how do I manage to not have models flaking on me? Because I tell you, and I brag about it, never had a model flake, ever. So finally, it's time. In one hour presentation, I'm going to divulge all of this information. I know some of you are going to ask, is it going to be recorded for YouTube? I'm sorry, it's not. But down the road, you know me, I will find a way to either do a video about it or to maybe record another version of it down the road. But the Shutterfest version will not be recorded. I can tell you, those of you that missed the B&H Depth of Field event, the talk that I did for them, Don't Be Afraid to Suck, was recorded. It is going to be posted on YouTube sometime later in March. So it's going to be down the road a little bit. But April 14th and 15th, Shutterfest in St. Louis. So I hope to see you there. And then also April 25th and 26th, a 2-day fashion portrait experience where you will be shooting your own unique images for your portfolio. No other photographer in attendance will shoot what you shoot. So we will be building images for each photographer in attendance. And then, some Camera Club stuff. And indeed, I saw Chuck mention it there. In August, I'm going to be at the Carolina Photo Expo down in North Carolina in Raleigh-Durham. Hope to see you there. That's a great event. I've done it before. Really looking forward to it. So still lots of opportunities for us to be able to meet, to chat. I got to tell you, these last 2 weeks and all the traveling, probably the most fun is the fact that I have met so many of you finally in person. So obviously I thank you for being here, but I also thank you for coming out to the events. It's really awesome to be able to kind of put a face to the, the names and the usernames. And it's funny how many people come up and introduce themselves by their username so that I will actually have a sense of who they are. So hopefully you'll be able to make it out to one of these. All right. So let's dig in here. I got a few questions to start. I saw a few more came in, but bring it in. We got time. Okay. So I want to start out with this question here that came in from Sammy. Whoops, and I'm clicking the wrong button. So it helps if we start out with the right button. There we go, Joe. Did or do, or actually he's typed do or did, you use business cards, Google ads, Facebook ads, etc. to advertise your photography services? What have you found to be the most or least effective in return on investment? So, Sammy, business cards, yes. Google ads, never. Facebook ads, once or twice. And that's it. So, as far as what have I found to be the most least effective in return on investment, I will tell you that business cards are a must, period. There is still tremendous value to having a good business card in today's world. Now, let me be clear, and I'm not going to name any names, but I've just been watching online on Facebook a local photographer here in the Allentown area who's only been shooting for a year or two, but very talented young man. He's into lots of other stuff, but he is now trying to start a photography business and make money, and making the rookie mistake that so many people make. Step one, not putting enough time and effort into actually improving their photography before they start worrying about how cool does my business card look. Step two, my guess is paid somebody to do a business card design and they got back like 15 variations on the design and posted them on Facebook and say, okay, everybody vote, which one do you like? Worst way ever to decide what your marketing should look like. Just saying. Business cards, though, still have a tremendous amount of value. But a business card is not going to improve your business. A business card is not going to make your business happen. A business card is, it's a social function. It's something that actually serves a social purpose. And in business, obviously, there are slightly greater benefits to it. But it's also not going to, it's not going to make or break your business, period. Right? That being said, my opinion, those words, my opinion, Google ads, Facebook ads for a photographer who is trying to do weddings, a photographer who is trying to do portraits, complete waste of time, in my opinion. Complete waste of time. And that's because they're way too random. In order for you, and even when I say random, let me be clear, because I know somebody's going to type in, but you can target specific people. Like you could say, I only wanted to go to women under the age of 30 or between the ages, let's say, of 18 and 30 in my town. That's right, you can. And so you're going to spend money to target a very, very few people. But here's the thing that you can't target, right? You can't target the fact that they're engaged and planning their wedding. You just can't. So you're still basically launching your ad out into a larger audience, and you're hoping that it connects. Ironically, back in the day when there was no internet, the dark ages, the way a wedding photographer especially, advertised their services was to go ahead and take out an ad in the yellow pages. Now, you could argue almost the same thing I just said. Well, you can't target. Actually, yes, it was the most targeted advertising you can find. The yellow pages as a whole was not targeted because, of course, it covered every business imaginable. But the best part of it is, if somebody needed a photographer, they would open up the yellow pages, go to P, find a section for photographers. That was very targeted information. So you were putting your ad exactly where people who were looking for a photographer would go, right? So that being said, I would advise you, Sammy, to not worry about any of those things. I would advise you to build a tremendous portfolio. I would advise you to learn how to use hashtags, especially on Instagram. And unfortunately, Sammy, what you didn't give me, which would allow me to further this. So, Sammy, I'm hoping you're here because this question was posted in my Facebook group. If you're here, Sammy, give me more information. I don't know what kind of photography you are trying to market because the finesse points really depend on, are you a wedding photographer? Are you trying to do corporate headshots? Are you trying to do real estate photography? Are you trying to do commercial advertising? Each of those is going to have some variables that I will gladly try to talk about. They come up here in questions a lot on TOGCHAT. But for now, the things you're talking about, a business card is essentially a business card. It's that's more of a social expectation, and it does have value. And in some cultures in the world, business cards are extremely important. Extremely important. So don't overlook that aspect, okay? But Sammy, if you can give me some more details, I will try to give you some more specific information. But Google ads, Facebook ads, don't waste your time, okay? Not for the kind of business that most of you who are here listening to me are going to be interested in. Okay. So from Lawrence Tilley, this is a little bit of a long one, but let's read through this. Buying a camera that seemed expensive when you bought it and lenses, then learning a bit more about photography and finding that your camera constantly is referred to as an entry-level one is rather embarrassing. Just have to stop there and say, Lawrence, I'm really not sure why that would be embarrassing, but we'll come back to that, all right? When is the right time to step up to a full frame or mirrorless model? So, Lawrence, seriously? You're going to ask me, and by the way, this was posted in my Facebook group. So, Lawrence, I love you for following me, but I am an Olympus Visionary who shoots micro four thirds. And you have basically just said that, well, if you want to be professional, you got to step up to full frame or mirrorless. So, dude, I got to tell you, you're spending way too much time on the damn internet. Get off the internet and go take pictures and have fun, right? Because I'm sorry, I'll run circles around many, many people that have full frame. Like, come on. Really? Please? So what are the differences I might expect when moving up from my humble Nikon D3400? I have, of course, been researching this online. First mistake, clearly, because you're a little bit too susceptible to this gobbledygook you're reading. I'm just saying. But sources of advice are usually biased by wanting to sell me the cameras, or sometimes there's even that line that goes, it's not the camera that makes the difference, it's a lens, or it's not the equipment that matters, it's the photographer. So, yeah, Lawrence, again, when I read questions like this, I got to be honest, and I'm having a little fun with you, man, but come on now, right? It's questions like this that make me so glad there was no internet when I learned photography. It really does. Because I would walk into a camera store, or I would speak to a mentor, and, that person, if they were at a camera store, they were invested in my success, doing whatever I was doing, because they wanted me to come back and buy more equipment. That mentor was my mentor because they gave me enough of a crap to be willing to give me their time, right? So here's the problem. It's not the camera, it's the lens. You're only getting part of the story because people like short sentences that sound cool, okay? Certainly, when it comes to the quality of an image, lenses are extremely important. But, that quote dates back to the film days. So part of the challenge is that quote dates back to the film days when film was kind of a universal thing. The thing that you have now, though, is you do have differences in sensors and differences in sensor size, which are not that big an issue unless you really suck at photography. So that quote, it's about the lens, doesn't really apply like it used to. For the most part, you can't buy a bad lens, just like you can't, look, I mean, come on, camera wars aside, right? Forget the brands for a minute. You can't buy a bad camera today. You just can't. We need to stop all this camera bashing stuff. There are a load of really, really bad photographers. There are no bad cameras. There are cameras that do not meet my needs. Lawrence, there are cameras that will not meet your needs. There are cameras that will not meet other people's needs. That does not make them bad. It's no different than one car does not work for me compared to another car because I need certain features. That doesn't make the other car bad. It just doesn't meet my needs, right? The second one, it's not the equipment that matters, it's the photographer. Well, that's actually very true. I firmly believe in that. But still, you have to have equipment that is going to allow you to do what you need to do. So first of all, let's go all the way back to the beginning. This entry-level thing, Lawrence, man up. I mean, honest, that's the best answer I give you. Like, man up. Who's intimidating you? What are you intimidated by? First of all, what does it matter if you have an entry-level camera or you have a pro camera? Because you go out and buy a pro camera tomorrow, and it is not going to make you a better photographer. The Pro camera may allow you to do things that your entry-level camera doesn't do, but it is not going to make your pictures significantly better. Only you can do that. I have a video from a few weeks back for the images that I shot in the desert out in Arizona with the EM5 Mark III, which is not the pro level Olympus camera. I defy you to tell me that those pictures look bad. They don't. So it is the photographer, but the fact of the matter is, I wasn't embarrassed taking pictures, and I was out there with 11 other world-class photographers in that desert. I wasn't embarrassed to use that camera. I took it as a challenge because I have confidence in what I can do. It's not about who's the best, who's better, who's got this camera, who's got that camera. See, you need to let that kind of stuff go. And the fact that you're embarrassed, look, Lawrence, I am confident the only people that have called your camera entry level are other people with cameras who are being jerks or you're being overly sensitive. I am quite confident that none of your subjects has looked at your camera and said, ooh, that's an entry-level camera. I don't know how I feel about having you take a picture of me. Right? Come on, man. We both know that hasn't happened. So, seriously. So let's get to the real juxt of your question. When is the right time to step up to full frame or mirrorless? When you can't do the things that you want to do with the camera that you currently have. That is the definitive answer. That is the logical answer. That is the smart answer. That is the fiscally responsible answer. You upgrade when you need to upgrade. And is full frame the answer? Sorry, dude. No, it's not. Could it be? Depends on what you're shooting. Depends on what your needs are. Stop listening to what you find on the internet. And before you go and upgrade, don't listen to some idiot on YouTube. Me included. Don't do that. Don't spend that kind of money because some guy on YouTube says, buy this. Worst thing ever. Go to your local camera store. Put the cameras in your hand. Talk to the salespeople there. They are invested in making sure that you are successful in what you're doing. Otherwise, they go out of business. Folks, you need to support your local camera retailers. I understand some of you don't have local camera retailers. I got that. But if you do, you need to support your local camera retailers. They are there for you. Sure, they want to sell you things. But they will not survive if they just sell it to you for the sake of selling it. These are people that are going to take an interest in what are you doing? What are you trying to accomplish? They will guide you. They will mentor you. They will help you. They will offer you classes. They will offer you events like these events that I've been doing around the country for Olympus at camera stores. So don't buy a camera, please, ever, because of what you see on YouTube, including Joe Edelman. If I make you curious and interested in Olympus cameras, that's awesome. But please do not spend the money until you have put one of those cameras in your hand and tried it. That is extremely important, and I have never suggested otherwise to anyone, ever. I firmly believe in that, okay? All right, next up. Whoops, wrong click again. Let's try that one more time. From Richard Bone. Does the EM1 Mark II or the EM5 Mark II, both Olympus cameras, have an equivalent starry sky focusing feature? Richard, they don't. So the feature that Richard's talking about just came, for those of you that aren't Olympus shooters, you should check this out. It's kind of cool. It's called Starry AF. You can make the jokes later, but that's what it's called, Starry AF. AF, get your minds out of the gutter. It stands for autofocus, okay? Starry AF in the Olympus EM1 Mark III is currently the only camera manufactured anywhere by any company that is capable of actually using autofocus to focus on stars at night. No other camera is capable of doing that. Really cool stuff. And it works. It works amazingly well, incredibly accurate, and unbelievably fast. So Your next question, Richard, I'm going to try and anticipate your next question because I've had this question asked to me a few times in the last couple of days. Will that Starry Sky AF show up as a firmware upgrade in like the EM1 Mark II or the EM1X? I don't know. So that's first and foremost. I don't know. If I was going to venture a guess, Richard, I would suggest to you don't hold your breath for that. And here's why. So Olympus is notorious for releasing new features, and then when they can, adding new features to older cameras via firmware upgrades, which is an awesome thing to do. The EM1 Mark III required the development of a new type of processor, which is part of, number one, what has allowed the EM1 Mark III with a single processor to include some of the features that were included in the EM1X, which has two processors. They also created a new autofocus algorithm, face detection algorithms. I'm sure some of that was either a byproduct of or came along in parallel to the Starry AF capabilities. My guess, Richard, honestly, would be that it probably requires some pretty heavy processing and computing power to be able to make Starry AF work, because it's actually figuring out where the stars are and locking in on stars. It's not some close to infinity kind of math where they said, okay, this is a good spot to set the focus. It's actually focusing on the stars. So I don't anticipate seeing it in previous models. Certainly, we will keep our fingers crossed and we will hope that's the case, but I would not expect it. And I will tell you, though, if you get an opportunity to try it out, you should try it out. It's really pretty cool. Truly kind of amazing technology. All right. All right. Next up here from Jason. I got two more left in here, and then we're going to dive into the chat window. So from Jason, since you used to be a photojournalist, I was curious as to your opinions of photos in this article. So again, full disclosure, used to be meant I started my career as a photojournalist when I was a teenager. My first job out of high school was as a newspaper photographer, and I worked as a photojournalist up until just about my mid-20s, okay? He goes on to type, it appears to me that all of the before, and I do have the article. I'll bring it up on the screen when I'm done reading. It appears to me that all of the before pictures are well processed and look very appealing, whereas the after pictures show buildings looking backlit and gloomy or overexposed and with a white balance kicked up, making it look dusty and almost post-apocalyptic. I guess where I'm going with this is wondering, what is your view on the ethics of picking photos like this for an article, or if I'm reading too much into this? So, it's a number one, it's a very interesting question, Jason, and it's a very reasonable question in today's world, unfortunately. So let me just switch the screen over here for you guys. So this is an article in Business Insider, and I can't leave it on the screen too long for copyright purposes, but let me show you this, and then we're going to go back and chat a little bit. So they're showing here's an image from Italy, kind of the before and the after, where indeed, the building is backlit. It looks much gloomier. Obviously, there are fewer people. If you look really close, this black grid that you see right here in the sidewalk is actually all the way up here. So clearly this shot's done, with a wider lens at a closer distance though, and from a lower camera angle, where this one is a higher camera angle. And if we scroll down, actually here, so here's the full shot. So there's the full width there, the full width here from a lower angle. Clearly fewer people, okay? And the images do show the dates. Here's the Spanish Steps, basically, 2 years ago. Here they are now. Here, if you notice what Jason's talking about, look at the richness of the colors. Here, it's really like almost an HDR effect. It's really kind of, overblown. Here we have the Colosseum in Rome. This was, 4 years ago. And here we have it now where there's actually, of course, people walking around in masks, etc. Near the Colosseum, this monument. And again, here it is now, just a few people. Some of them have masks. At the Vatican by St. Peter's, and now of course the close up with the people with masks, etc. Ironically, if we look closely here, this shot's taken way back from the chairs. This shot's taken actually pretty close to the chairs. So, and there's no people up here in the chairs, right? So it is a little bit misleading in terms of the number of people. Here's the Louvre, in 2015, if you follow the news, that they closed the Louvre this week. So obviously there's not going to be any people there because there's nothing there to go see other than the building. So, what is my take? I don't think, first and foremost, that Business Insider is trying to punch up a whole lot of fear, and I don't think they're fear mongering. I don't get that sense as I read the article. I don't get that sense as I read the captions. I will say that unfortunately it's kind of sloppy journalism. And I think for the rest of us, there's a couple lessons to be learned here, right? So one thing that it's important, Jason, and the rest of you, that you should understand about photojournalism. I grew up in a generation and a time period where if it was in a newspaper, like that was gospel. That was it, right? It happened. Done. If you saw a picture, it happened. Done, right? And the fact of the matter is, back then, it was much harder for a photographer to alter an image than it is now. And sadly, we do from time to time hear stories and see situations where photographers of actually, very, very well-known names working for very prestigious publications who have essentially cheated and altered things. So it happens, which means that I'm sure to some degree it happened back in the film days too. It's just that images weren't published as widely and weren't as readily available on this thing called the internet, so people couldn't figure out the problems. But let me take a step back, and I do want to point something out to you. And this is a lesson that I learned as a young photojournalist, because I kind of had this feeling that everything I was doing as a photojournalist was pure, because my philosophy was I would not cheat. I absolutely would not cheat. I would not cut corners. I had a responsibility. So even with that philosophy, I had a mentor that I met along the way who pointed out to me that you are not capable as a human being, saying this to me, that I'm not capable as a human being of not skewing a story. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, that can't be the case. Like, understand. When you arrive at an accident scene, because back then we used to shoot car accidents, any kind of accidents, fires, you name it. When you arrive at a scene, you have a choice. So the first choice, of course, is do you shoot it or not shoot it? That's the given, right? But we're going to assume that we shoot it. So the choice is, do we take the picture looking this way, this way, this way, this way? Do we aim the camera up? Do we aim the camera down? Do we turn around and take the picture over here because there's something more interesting? If you look at some of the images from 9/11, other than, the shots of the buildings collapsing and the planes going into the building, some of the most compelling images from 9/11 were images that were taken looking in the opposite direction of the people looking up in awe of the buildings coming down. So there's a couple things that are going on here. I would argue that in the rush to be able to create headlines that are going to draw readership to stay a part of this story, which is a big story, I just think they got a little sloppy with some of their image selections and did not do enough research to find images that really kind of compared well. We know for a fact by watching multiple news sources, regardless of what your politics are, because unfortunately today news is political, which is really unfortunate. But, we know that Italy has been, shutting down a lot of the country, shutting down travel plans. We know that France just shut down the Louvre. So to show a picture of the Louvre empty, well, duh, they closed it. So of course it's going to be empty, right? So that kind of stuff, are there more people walking around in mass in Italy? I'm sure there are. Are there fewer people at the major tourist attractions in Italy? I'm sure there are, because they're doing that. So, certainly it's very challenging to find images that are lit the same, from the same perspective, same time of day, all those things that are taking years or decades apart, but it's frequently done. So I would just say that what Business Insider, honestly, if it were my evaluation, my opinion is what they're guilty of is not misleading, but honestly being a little bit lazy and not putting in as much effort as they could have and or should have in order to find images that were actually good matchups. So I don't think that they are misleading us in any way. I think it's just unfortunate that they weren't a little bit more detailed and thorough in their searching. That would be my take. All right, one last question from previously, and then we'll get into it from Doug. Joe, can you give any tips on how you would light and post-process differently a full-length or three-quarter shot as opposed to a headshot? For instance, do you position the light further back, which will reduce the light fall off, but make the light not as soft? Would you use a larger modifier? So, Doug, I will say my post-processing is not going to be any different. Post-processing is post-processing in that regard. I don't have one formula that I use for close-ups and one that I use for full-length or three-quarter length. But with regard to the light, it really depends on numerous things. If all things equal, if I'm using like the same kind of background, my subject is the same distance from the background, etc., I would probably back my light up a little bit or go to a larger modifier. Honestly, it kind of depends on what mood I'm in that day. You guys know, unfortunately, that the way I use modifiers, I have a couple that I like, and I'll use them for almost everything. Right? To me, a modifier, it's like a carpenter using a hammer. While they may own 3 or 4 different hammers, they may have a rubber mallet, they may have a regular hammer, they may have a slightly heavier hammer, and then they maybe even have a round-headed, what's called a ball peen hammer. There's still one hammer that's their primary hammer that they're going to use most of the time for most of the things they do. And those other 3 hammers that I mentioned, they're getting used for special situations. I'm kind of the same way with my modifiers. Generally speaking, unless you're using a really, really small modifier, Doug, for your portraits, like I'm talking like 12 by 12 or maybe 18 inch. But if I'm using like a 32 inch or a 42 inch round, either umbrella or an octabox or soft box or collapsible beauty dish, which is kind of my go-to. If I'm using something that's at least 32 inches or bigger, I would have no problem backing it up a little bit to get a little bit more spread and not be worried about the light getting that much more harsh. So I think the biggest thing that I would worry about if I were going to do that is certainly if I did back the light up a little bit more to get the full length light, I would make sure that if my light's over here, if this is where my key light is, I'm not going to have my subject take their face to here, because then I am going to start to bring a cross shadow. I will be a lot more aware that if this is where my light's going, I'm going to have them bring that face up towards the light so I get a nice, more even light on the face. But honestly, I would probably not be doing a whole lot of switching of my modifiers. That doesn't worry me at all. It's the combination, which you're kind of alluding to in your question, Doug. It's the combination of understanding the inverse square law, understanding how light will spread, but it's definitely not an issue where you've got to be super, super worried about it. So, all right, so let's dive into some of these other questions here. I see this one come up, so I think I can actually show you a sample. Let's hit this one here real quick. Eric, thank you so much, man, for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. So Pinnacle Pete, for the heck of it, have you tried using the handheld high-res mode or tripod mode with a live model? I would think with a fast enough shutter speed, a still model and or flash, it could be done. So, funny you should ask that question. So I'll tell you what, give me a second here, and I'm going to pull up something. I can show you one image, and I can show you a great comparison on this one image that will blow your minds as far as the handheld high-res. So for those of you that don't know what handheld high-res is, okay, I've just got to open up a keynote presentation here really quick, and I'm going to show you my notes kind of as is, or my stuff as is in the display. So you're going to see this a little bit small on the screen, so just follow along before any of you start typing your trolling comments. Can we do that? All right, so let me bring this up. So these are 2 slides in Keynote, which is the Apple version of PowerPoint, right? So these are part of what I'm using in my presentation for the Olympus Capture Light Tour. So here is a shot, Pinnacle Pete, that is handheld high-res. You can see this was done with the EM1 Mark III, the new camera, handheld on the high-res mode. So this is a 50 megapixel raw file. If you do tripod high-res, you can get 80 megapixel raw files, which are great for landscapes, etc. But I would not use the tripod high-res for people. For handheld high-res, okay, I went ahead and I did this shot at ISO 64. So I purposely wanted to be using a slower shutter speed just to test it out. So ISO 64 1/80th of a second at f1.2. So obviously on the screen, what you're seeing there, even if I blow it up bigger, there's nothing impressive about it, right? Let me give you the proof. Here is a 100% version. So this image that you're seeing of Monet, which again was handheld, high-res mode, and folks, if you don't understand, I'll explain to you what the handheld high-res mode does in a moment. Here is a 100% version. Same image, it's just cropped. You can count the colored dots in the contact lenses. So this is indeed handheld. Let me see if I can make it a little bit larger here. I think I can. Zoom in. So here, let's hit this. Well, let me go any further? No, that's all the further it's going to let me go. Yeah, so unfortunately, I can't make it any bigger on here. But you guys, if you pause your video later and take a look at this, you can actually count the dots. So, Pinnacle Pete, does it work? Yes, it absolutely works. It's amazing. And I'm not the steadiest guy when it comes to doing really, really long exposures, primarily because I'm a little hyper and I drink too much caffeine. So I wasn't sure that this feature was going to be something that was actually doable for me at all, okay? That shot that you see of Monet, it's the very first shot that I ever did, handheld high-res with the EM1 Mark III. First shot, first frame. And it's amazing. So for those of you that don't know what this does, the way you do it is through pixel shift. So when you're in the handheld high-res mode, the camera is going to actually take 16 images very, very rapidly. And what it's doing is shifting the pixels each time. It's basically shifting the sensor by a pixel each time. And what it's going to do is it's going to gather 320 megapixels of data. So it's going to take 16 images for a total of 320 megapixels of data. And then it's basically going to make sure everything's registered, trim off the edges, and output a 50 megapixel raw file. Way cool. Now, I want to be really clear though. I don't know how many times you need a 50 megapixel raw file. Remember guys, I just had an image come down off a billboard, 48 feet wide. And it looked great with just the regular 20 megapixel sensor image, right? But does it work? Yes, it totally works, okay? So, but yeah, highly impressive, highly impressive. So, Perluigi, two-part question. I'd like to ask you what you think of the photos heavily edited with Photoshop. I ask because I would like to create a photo starting from a model posing in a street and modify the background in order to make the atmosphere very steampunk. Also adding details that do not exist in reality, but I'm afraid then everything will be too artifacts. What do you think? Well, Perluigi, I do lots of compositing, right? So I'm maybe the, or actually maybe you knew that and we're hoping I would, give the confirmation. Here's the key, right? When you start doing compositing, you're dealing in an imaginary world. So you have to decide, how do you want that imaginary world to look? Meaning, is it going to look really fake and impossible? Or is it going to look really plausible and hence, wow, right? When you start getting into the compositing like you're talking about, Perluigi, the key is, how good are your Photoshop skills? That's the key. Look, for all the compositing I do, I'm not going to have somebody tell me my pictures are horrible because I composited. I don't care. If they don't like composites, that's cool. They don't have to like composites. Remember, we do what we do for us, and then we share it with the world. Some will like it. Some will hate it. It's okay. It's totally okay, right? So just because some people hate it doesn't mean I'm going to change what I do. It simply doesn't. But indeed, if you're going to do composites, you need to really up your game in terms of your Photoshop skills so that the stuff looks good. Otherwise, it just winds up looking sloppy, right? But I'm all for that stuff. Totally. I have no problem with doing composites. So from Dwayne here, let's see. Why can't I get his question up here? There it goes. Okay. From Dwayne, you have me very interested in Olympus. My question is, I shoot weddings and sports. Where would you start? I currently shoot Sony. Second, when you went from Nikon to Olympus, what made you change? So, Dwayne, a couple of things here. First of all, let me find for you my video. Bear with me one second. I have a whole video that's all about there it is. I have a video that's all about why I switched from Nikon to Olympus. So let me just get that up on the screen first, I'll share that link with you, and then I'll give you my recommendations here from what you might want to consider. So to get you that video, let's click over here. I'm just going to take your question off the screen real quick. So you're doing wedding and sports. So on the little magnifying glass here, I'm going to just type Olympus. It should come up fairly easily. And we'll do the search. And there it is. Goodbye Nikon. Why I switched to Olympus. So I am going to let you watch this video when you have a few moments, Dwayne. But there's the full reason why I switched. Basically what it involved the fact that I reached the point where I realized I was only using my Nikon cameras if I was getting paid, because they were too damn heavy, too big. And, I took all my pictures with this, and I've got 2 grandkids, all that kind of stuff. And this is what I was shooting with. Not to mention, I, at the time, was using a Nikon D810, great camera. The D850 had just been released, and I was looking at spending, another $3,000+ on a body. And I really wanted mirrorless. I really wanted to be working with an EVF, and Nikon, didn't seem to have their act together. And so, that was kind of it. Fast forward, your question, weddings and sports. I would tell you straight up, you want to use either the EM1X, which is definitely geared more on the sports side. Great for weddings. One of my fellow visionaries, Tracy McGlosky, she loves the EM1X, swears by it for weddings. You could also do amazing wedding work with the brand new one, the EM1 Mark III. Outstanding. You will find, and there's a couple of photographers that come to name that you can Google and check them out. So the first one, as I mentioned, of course, is my fellow Olympus Visionary, Tracy McGlosky. She's based in Ohio. Outstanding work. The other pair, it's a husband and wife duo. They're based down, I believe, in North Carolina. It's Sean and Danielle King, right? Let me get I'll get you their website address here. They shoot with Olympus. They both shoot weddings. Absolutely awesome. Let me just see here. And their website address is visualritualsmedia.com. I'm putting it here in the chat window. There you go. So you can check out their website. They are Olympus shooters. Sean also shoots for Duke University, does tons of incredible stuff. Their work is top notch. So I would start, Dwayne, by checking out their work. But for me, I would recommend, you look at both the EM1X and the EM1 Mark III, the brand new one. Both more than capable of doing weddings and sports for that matter. But the EM1X is definitely geared a little bit more towards sports. I can tell you one of my other fellow visionaries is Kelly Cox, who's based out in the Bay Area, Oakland, California. She shoots professional sports. She shoots Major League Baseball, the Oakland Athletics. She shoots whatever the basketball team is there. She also does all the sports photography for Cal State Berkeley, all those, and her work, of course, is amazing. She shoots for USA Today. So let's be clear, right? She is a working photojournalist. She covers the 49ers for USA Today, shooting with Olympus. She was using the EM1 Mark II before the EM1X came out, and of course, she definitely switched over to the EM1Xs for all of her sports work, top-notch work. So you can learn more about her on the Get Olympus website. The name is Kelly with an E, so it's Kelley, and then Cox, C-O-X. Just incredible. Okay? All right, scrolling back up here. Let's see. Adam B. I recently bought a new in-the-box Olympus E20. Yeah, that's kind of old, though. While new, it was released over 10 years ago. It works and looks great, but the camera grip material is soft and sticky. Is there a way to fix it? You got 2 options, Adam. So obviously, with the camera being that old, option 1, you could send it into an Olympus for a repair. It's going to obviously cost you money, and I'm not sure that it would honestly be worth it, given the age of the camera. Most people that run into a problem with the grips like that is they will try to use a little solvent like WD-40 to clean off the stickiness, and then simply use some nice heavy-duty, super glue or Gorilla Glue to, glue it back on. If you take your time and you're patient and you're careful, you can do that very elegantly and make it look just like new, etc. But the other option would be to send it into Olympus for a repair. Obviously, that's going to cost a little bit more. It always does when you when you send cameras in for repairs to a manufacturer. So okay. All right, scrolling on back. I see some good comments people had about working with full frame as opposed to micro four thirds. Again, no battles here. My only goal is just to make people realize it's not just about the megapixels. It's not just about the camera. Hence why I talk and like to talk about the what's behind it, the hows and the whys, right? So scrolling on up here. Another question from Pinnacle Pete earlier on. I'm planning an outdoor photo shoot well in advance with a model, his first, cool. What provisions are typically put in a contract in the event that it pours cats and dogs the day of the shoot? And then part two is, I want to shoot at this particular location and don't have a plan B indoor location to substitute. Well, first of all, Pete, if this is like the first time you're going to shoot with a model, what do you need a contract for, man? Like, seriously, do you really want to have to deal with contracts? Talk to the model. Say, hey, like if it rains, are you going to be okay if we postpone? Have a conversation. What do you need a contract for? You're learning. Presumably she's learning. It doesn't sound like you're hiring, some top name model, which would be kind of foolish if you're just learning anyway. That would be a really bad plan. Just have a conversation and, both of you agree on what the plan is and make sure you stick with that. That's all. You definitely don't want to go to all the trouble of having contracts for something like that. You just don't. So from David Joe Jew, gosh, I hope I'm getting it right there. Sorry. But do you know of any travel apps you recommend to help in location scouting for photo spots when visiting no places? So they do exist, David. I've tried a couple along the way, and they all kind of sucked when I tried them. And now, of course, it would be much more helpful if I could actually name one for you, right? I know that. So what I'm going to do, which you could also do, but I realized you wanted to see if I had a favorite. I'm typing into Google right now. So here, actually, let's switch over. This is good. We'll do this. Let me take the question off the screen. So right out of the box came up this one. It's called Map-A-Pic. So obviously, I'm not making any recommendations. The last time I tried an app of this type was probably about 2 years ago. And the problem of it is they were all brand new. So they're all built by crowdsourcing, meaning it's up to people submitting pictures with GPS and coordinates on them. So at the time, there just wasn't a lot of depth of information, but I would think by now there's probably a lot. So Map-A-Pic, Pro Filmmakers Apps has a Location Scouts one, Location Scouting app. So there's a couple here. I mean, here's the search term. I'll actually put the whole link in here so you can, that way you'll see exactly what I was just seeing. So that's there in the chat window for you. I wish I could say, try this one because I know it's awesome. Unfortunately, I have not checked any of those out in quite a long time. So yeah, I know they exist, and there's clearly some new ones because I have not heard of those few that we mentioned. So none of them rings a bell. So they're definitely not the ones that I tried. So yeah, most of those kinds of apps you can kind of try like at least a free trial type thing. I'd be willing to bet a lot of them do have a fee, and if they're good, it's worth it. But try the free trial, see what you get, and then go from there. So. All right, scrolling back up here to next set of questions. Let's see. And here we go. Eric Arnold, a rhetorical question. Oh my goodness, Eric. All right, here we go. Why is it that photographers complain about copyright when it is their image, but don't think twice about taking audio or video clips from other creators? Because people like to complain, Eric. Yeah, I mean, so I'm assuming that happened to you. I don't know really what to tell you there. I mean, I am a big fan of understanding copyrights, respecting copyrights, giving credit where credit is due. So yeah, my wife, as many of you know, is a college professor, and I'll be the first to tell you, college professors are the worst at not respecting copyrights. And they get at least in the United States, they get a lot of leeway. It falls under the category of what's called fair use when it's being used for teaching. But the other part of the problem is they don't actually educate their students about that fair use concept. So students come out of college thinking that, yeah, man, I could just grab stuff off the internet because like I've been doing it for the last 4 years and being rewarded for it. So it's not that fair use shouldn't exist. It should exist. But at the same time, it would be nice if there's a little bit more educating happening along with it, because unfortunately, we breed new adults that actually don't understand that there's kind of an ownership behind things that are being created. So, that's really the challenge. But yeah, so Rob Trek, I have trouble getting a catch light in people's eyes. Can you suggest different ways to do this? Rob, I'm hoping you're still here. Are you shooting natural light? Are you shooting strobes? You got to give me a little more context, right? Obviously, if you're shooting natural light and everything's backlit, well, then, yeah, I could see how you're maybe not getting a catch light. But if you're shooting with strobes and it's front lit, like, if you've got a subject and a light up here and you have no catch light, it means that your light's too high. That's all. You need to lower it a little bit, okay? And indeed, if your light's so high that you're not getting a catch light, you're also creating kind of probably a very unflattering light. That's the other piece. So if you can give me some more feedback about what kind of stuff you're shooting and what kind of lighting you're working with, that will help a little bit, and then I can definitely try to help you out here. Let's see. Janice, got to meet you at Hunts last week. Awesome. Thanks for coming out. That was a great crowd we had that night, wasn't it? So let's say, hey, Ajax, birthday boy is here. All right, happy birthday, Ajax. Rob Trek, indeed, I got to see you at District. I thought I had one more question up here at the beginning. No, I don't. All right, cool. So let's slide back to the end here. So I will tell you guys, I have like 4 minutes. Anybody want to type quick? Because I think I got all the questions. So David Crooks saw me last Thursday and getting your Mark III on Wednesday. Good for you, man. Glad to hear that. Enjoy it. You're going to love it. Amazing camera. So Doyle Hughes, have I heard what the new EM1 price will be? You mean the new EM1 Mark III? Yeah, man, it's on the market already. And I know I'll get it wrong if I just try to do it off the top of my head because I don't pay any attention to prices. But so give me 1 second here. I want to say $17.99, but let's $17.99 is the price, Doyle. And keep in mind too. So and David, I don't know if you're doing this, but remember that Olympus has that trade in, trade up program where you can get like if you're trading in old gear, you can get like an extra $200 right now. So it's a limited time only. So go to getolympus.com and read about it. So so basically, like David, if you're switching from Canon, if you're going to trade in your Canon gear, obviously the dealer will evaluate it. They'll give you a price for your Canon gear, and whatever they offer you, Olympus is going to tack on another additional $200 to whatever the dealer's offering you. So yeah, it's a great time to be able to, to make that move. So, cool, David. So yeah, if you're trading in that Canon, you'll be able to get, $200 more for it than what you would have normally because Olympus will kick in $200. So make sure you guys hit, getolympus.com and read all the details. Okay. Question here from Mike. Do you ever use a low-powered snoot just to create a catch light without otherwise affecting your exposure? I don't. Could you? Sure. You could. Kind of an awful lot of work. Like, I'm kind of sitting here running through my mind, Mike, like, what kind of situations am I going to run into that I need to do that? But just taking your question as is, could you do that? Sure. That would work in theory. You could even put like a little, so, if we just want to create like a faux catch light, which you got to be a little careful of that. But if you just want a faux catch light, get one of those little like rectangular LED lights that are meant for shooting video, stick it on your hot shoe, right? Still use your studio strobes, okay? And, then you're going to see a catch light from that. But yeah, you gotta be careful with that. So Mike's saying here that in his case, he was using his lights gridded. Yeah, that could be. I will push back, Mike, and obviously, since we're running out of time, so I'm not doubting you, but just make sure that you actually need to grid your main light and your fill light. I find so many people today that grid those lights because they see some idiot on YouTube doing it, and there's no real value to doing it. So sometimes there's a perfectly good reason to use grids, right? But I find too many photographers like, oh, I'm all about them grids, man. I love them grids. Got to use them grids. And all they're doing is making their lighting so much harder to do, number one. And they are really creating harsher light when they're trying to get softer light. So just make sure you really need, to do that. So, all right, let's see here. From Jessica, shooting outdoors in natural light, what's the best way to get catch lights to reflect in the client's eyes? Wow, you guys, I got a lot of people that are really kind of misunderstanding how catch lights work in the first place. So Jessica, I'll answer your question the way you typed it, and then I'm going to try and give you a little bit more background, right? The best way to get catch lights to reflect in a client's eyes is to have a light source. That's it. That's all. You just need a light source. That's what a catch light is. The catch light is the reflection of a light source. So even if you have a subject standing in shade outside, if they're looking towards a sunny area, the sun's not on them, they're in shade, but if they're looking towards a brighter area, there's going to be a catch light. It's not going to be a specular catch light. It's going to be more of like a horizontal catch light. Now, can you make it a specular catch light? Not when you're outside in a situation like that. That doesn't work, right? But you're going to have a horizontal catch light. It's actually kind of a cool catch light, in my opinion. The best way to get a catch light is to have a light source. That's it. The sun. Could be a bright building they're looking at. Just open space with sunlight. You have to understand, gang, that it's just so we're clear about this, because again, and maybe this is a video I need to do. Catch lights exist all the time. All the time. Like nonstop. Whether you're taking pictures, not taking pictures, there's catch lights. Because it is indeed a reflection. It's your eyes reflecting whatever light source is lighting them, right? So the catch lights are always there, but the best way to get it outside is just to let it happen naturally. Right? If you're not getting enough of a catch light or you want a more substantial catch light, use like a reflector and you'll get a catch light really, really simple. Because indeed, that's all that the catch light is. It's a reflection, right? For sure. So actually, Alvin added a little piece in here about that Maps app. Google Map Pro app for computers is free and also to find locations based on time of your month. Cool. So guys should check that out. And let's see here. All right, it's gonna be my last question for the night. From Garvey Line, shooting with a Canon Mark IV. He's got all the studio lighting, whatever that means, but I assume he means I've got a full studio kit. Cool. How many pics, different looks and types to start my fashion portfolio? I have a one-day shoot, 10 hours coming up. I have hair, makeup, and wardrobe. So first of all, if you're gonna have a model in your studio for 10 hours, dude, by the time you get to your last shoot, she is gonna look like death warmed over. Just saying. Okay. You can't shoot a whole fashion portfolio in one day. You just can't. That one day that you're going to shoot, you should be planning for, but hoping to get one image out of that day. One. Right? You can't shoot a whole portfolio in 3 weeks. You can't shoot a whole portfolio in 5 photo shoots. Just the fact that you're asking this question states right out of the box, you're not actually even ready to be putting a portfolio together. You're just not, okay? You need to get to the point where you have the other problem, Garvey. You have the problem of, I've got 150 images that I am just in love with. How do I narrow it down to 6 or 10? That's it. Honestly, I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm being straight with you. Tell it like it is. Stop worrying about your portfolio and figure out how you're going to get some amazing pictures out of that shoot. And understand you're only going to get one portfolio worthy shoot. You don't want 10 pictures in your portfolio of the same girl. You don't want 3 pictures in your portfolio of the same girl. You don't want 2 pictures in your portfolio of the same girl. If you have too many pictures of the same girl, it basically says you have no experience. That's what it says. It says, well, he can do great stuff if he shoots this girl, but anybody else, forget it. You guys got to understand, when we talk about portfolios, it's the same with models. Models will find a photographer that they really like, and they'll shoot with that photographer. And then they walk into an agency, and all their pictures are done by the same photographer. The agency takes one look at it and says, yeah, this girl has no clue. Because she's only got experience with one photographer. There's no experience there. I don't care if she's done 3,000 photo shoots. If they're all with the same photographer, she has no experience, right? So one day, 10 hours is extremely excessive. Let's be clear. But you're looking for a one shot. That's what you're after. So, and when it comes time to how many pictures, understand this. I'm not going to give you a number because that would be the dumbest thing I could do. It's not going to help you. But I will tell you this lesson. Don't forget this lesson. When you put your portfolio together, your fashion portfolio, you can look like a total rock star with 5 pictures. And the flip side of that, you can look like a complete hack with 10. If you're stretching to include numbers, but you don't have the quality to fit it, you just look like a hack. You're showing work that is of poor quality. All right, folks, I got to head out. We're just over an hour. Thank you so much for joining me Monday night. I got to head to the airport first thing in the morning. Hopefully, I'm going to get to see some of you in Florida this week. I'm in Fort Myers the end of the week at the FCCCC, Florida Camera Club Council annual convention. I'm going to be the keynote speaker and doing like 4 or 5 other talks down there. A whole bunch of stuff going on. Some really great speakers going to be there. I hope to see you. But if not, we'll be back next Wednesday with our regularly scheduled episode of TOGCHAT. So in the meantime, gang, you guys know the drill. Please remember.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TOGCHAT. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.